Welcome to today's card class. Today we are going to make some embossed vellum cards. To get started, we have all of your supplies: cardstock, alcoholic paper, vellum, alcohol inks, embellishments, some vellum tape, your blending tool with the felt pad, and a sentiment die. To get started, we are going to make 2 card bases, so with whatever color cardstock you have, or you can use 2 pre-made card bases as well. So we're going to cut our 12 by 12 cardstock at 8 1/4 inches by 5 7/8. We'll cut one and then cut the next one again at 5 7/8. Then just folding those in half or scoring at 4 1/8 to create the cards. So grabbing your scoreboard out, using your scoring tool, scoring at 4 1/8 on both of the cards. Once you have scored your cards, just going to fold them over and burnish those score lines. A quick and easy way to create your own card bases with whatever coloured cardstock you have in your stash. I've used a Couture Creations Navy for this. Just happened to be the colour that I wanted to use. Nothing special about it per se, it's up to you. You could have black or white, or just using your pre-made cards as well. So once you have that cut, we're going to cut an insert to put in the middle of your card, and to do that you will need to just use printer paper, and you want to cut the printer paper at 5 5/8 by, I think it's 8 1/4, so 8 inches. So it'd be 5 5/8 by 8 inches. And then just folding that over in half and placing inside your cards. With your inserts, to stick them in to your card bases, just open them out and place the tape right along the score line, as close to the middle of that score as you can. Peeling back the release paper and then folding over your insert. So it's a great way of adding something easy to write on in the middle of your cards, especially when you're using a dark cardstock. So doing that on both of them, again opening the insert out and adding the tape right along the score line, and then placing it inside the card to finish off the card bases. Once you have completed the card bases, we will start getting our vellum organized and our alcohol inks. So we're going to make some card fronts from using alcohol ink paper. Now I've had the adhesive alcohol ink paper in my stash, so it made it really easy when it came to adhering on the card front, but it is completely up to you with what paper you have. You could even use this technique just on standard cardstock. It won't move and won't have the same or depth in the pebbly effect that it creates, but whatever you have around will work. So we're going to cut the alcohol ink paper to 4 inches by 5 5/8, and cutting 2 of those for our card fronts. So 4 inches by 5 5/8. And then while we have our trimmer out, we will cut up our vellum. For the vellum, you'll need 2 pieces that are 3 inches by 5 5/8. So the vellum, cutting it at 3 inches and 5 5/8. You can pop those to the side, and we'll come back to those after we have played with the alcohol inks. So choosing 2 colours for this method, you'll need 2 different felt pads, so 1 for each colour, because instead of mixing the colours on the pad, we're going to blend the colours in from either side together. So to get started, you'll need to add your alcohol ink onto your felt pad, and then adding a small amount of isopropyl alcohol. Once we have the ink on the felt pad, we're going to pounce the pad just up and down on the paper, just tapping up, down, tap, 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 just about halfway on our alcohol ink cardstock. So I'm doing both at the same time. It just makes it easier as we're creating 2 cards, but if you wanted to do them 2 differently and using different colours on either of the cards, then you would be able to just do the one at a time. So as you can see, you just keep going over and over and over, pouncing the blending tool up and down on the cardstock, just until the effect that you are happy with has been created, and then we can move on to the next colour. So just keep going until there is no more ink coming off the felt pad. If you feel that it's not dark enough for you, you can always go back in and add more colour, but I was happy with the pastel-y effect that this was creating. So I'm going to turn those over to do the next colour. So swapping the pad over and then adding the next colour on to the pad. A little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and the reason why we're using the isopropyl instead of the blending solution is because we want to have, like, we're creating a pastel-y effect. So if you want a darker, use less isopropyl, but I was sort of trying to lighten the colours rather than having them really, really super dark on the paper, whereas the blending solution is going to mix those colours too much, and then you're not going to have the separation that you're after for this particular design. But if you want them all mixed up, go for it. So this is your project, and you can follow my design in the way that I have completed it, which is actually inspired from the insert of the packet from the You Go Girl collection, which is what I use at the end to add the flowers on. That's the pre-cut die cut ephemera from there, and the idea of this actually came from the insert, the backing cardboard insert of that black, which is kind of fun. So once you have got all of your pink, start heading over into that blue section and just a little bit, and you'll see the colours starting to blend slightly, but not too much. Swap over to the blue pad again, add some more isopropyl alcohol, and then come across along that middle section. And then you'll find that you'll start creating with the blue and the pink. Of course, purple is being created in the middle. I wasn't looking for a huge blend, so I just wanted to do a small amount and pushing that across, and then just adding that purple in wherever it turned up. So have a bit of a fun play with this using the two separate pads instead of mixing the colours onto the one pad, and then just keep swapping the pads out to get the desired effect that you are after. So it's a great fun technique, and you can create so much with using such little amount of the alcohol ink itself. Just keep refreshing that pad. Purple. So once you are happy with the design and the effect that it has created, just putting those aside to dry. Okay, so vellum we are going to place inside an embossing folder, and what I have put inside there with the vellum is just a bit of printer paper, a bit of scrap paper, because that stops the vellum from cracking, because sometimes in an embossing folder as you're running it through the die cut machine, the pressure is just too much and it'll crack the vellum. So to avoid that, just adding a piece of printer paper or a thin piece of cardstock in the embossing folder with the vellum will prevent that from happening. So once you have put both pieces of the vellum through your embossing machine or die cut machine with the embossing folder, we are going to assemble the cards. Now whatever embossing folder you have to use will be fine. I've just chosen something that I had in my stash that I liked the look of the pattern. Now to assemble our cards, we are going to adhere the alcohol ink paper on to the cardstock. I have the pink to the left hand side, the blue to the right, but it is up to you in how you want to finish off your card. So this is where the adhesive alcohol ink paper comes in real handy because you just peel the backing paper off and then adhering the alcohol ink paper directly onto the card base. And with those on, we're going to adhere the vellum. So just using vellum tape, and this is fantastic stuff to use with vellum because you can use the vellum, the tape that you need, directly on the vellum, and I've gone all the way around, and once it's adhered on you cannot see it at all. It's amazing. I was very impressed with it. So just adhering that on to the middle of the alcohol ink paper as best you can, adhering that on to both cards using the vellum tape. Definitely one to have in your stash if you don't have it already and you do occasionally work with vellum. I would definitely recommend having a vellum tape. So once the vellum is stuck down onto our card bases with the alcohol ink underneath, to finish off the card just need to add the ephemera and a sentiment. So for these I used the You Go Girl collection, the die cut ephemera set. and just use some of the flowers and the leaves on the front. So whatever you have in your stash is fine to add on to the front of your cards. And then once you have chosen what you're going to use and how you're going to lay them out on your card, adhere them down, and the last thing that we will do is add a sentiment, which I've just cut out of a coloured cardstock and adhered with glue. Once you have chosen your sentiment and die cut it out, after adhering all of the ephemera pieces you've chosen to use, adding your sentiment on. So this is the happy birthday from Creative Expressions. Just adding those on to finish off your card. So I really hope that you have enjoyed creating these cards, doing something a little bit different with alcohol inks and embossing vellum. I look forward to seeing the cards that you create using this tutorial. And look forward to seeing you next time.